Stop thinking Huawei is already banned from the US. Seriously. If you believe the US has already cut off all Chinese tech, you need to understand the loophole. Here is the counterintuitive truth that every consumer and tech investor needs to know. The US already bans Huawei's own equipment. But a phone with a Huawei-designed chip can still be sold in the US. That's the gap. That's the loophole. Not anymore. The Federal Communications Commission is voting in July on a rule that would ban the sale of any device containing components from blacklisted companies, including Huawei, ZTE, Hikvision, and Dahua. That means phones with HiSilicon Kirin chips, routers, modems, any finished communication device. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr says we must protect Americans from electronic devices that have been determined to pose unacceptable risks to national security. Huawei, ZTE, and others on the covered list have been blacklisted since March 2021. But components have been a blind spot. This rule closes it. Let me break down exactly what's happening. I'll admit something. I assumed Huawei was already banned from the US market. No Huawei phones here, I thought. Then I learned about the loophole. A phone with a Huawei HiSilicon chip can legally be sold here. Because the ban was on Huawei's own equipment, not components inside other products. Today, I'm going to break down the FCC's new rule. By the end, you will understand why this is a big deal, and why supply chains are about to get more complicated. Let's start with the current situation. What the US already bans, telecom equipment made by Huawei, ZTE, and other companies on the FCC's covered list is already barred from American networks. What is not banned? Consumer electronics like smartphones that contain chips designed by Huawei's semiconductor unit, HiSilicon. How is that possible? The covered list was created in March 2021 under the Secure and Trusted Communications Networks Act of 2019. It was designed to stop these companies' branded equipment from being used in US telecom networks. But consumer electronics containing components from those same firms were never explicitly covered. The result, a device maker could integrate a blacklisted company's chip into a phone or tablet and sell it in the US, perfectly legally. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr is calling this a loophole that must be closed. The counterintuitive truth? The US has been banning the tree while letting the branches slip through. Now let me explain the proposed rule. The FCC plans to vote in July 2026. The rule, any device containing components from companies on the covered list would be banned from sale, import, or use in the United States. The effect, extending the ban down the supply chain to the component level. The companies on the covered list include Huawei Technologies, ZTE, Hangzhou Hikvision, Dahua Technology, Hytera, China Mobile, and China Telecom. What counts as a component? Semiconductors, chips, modules, anything embedded in consumer and enterprise devices. The goal: protect Americans from electronic devices that have been determined to pose unacceptable risks to the national security of the United States. The counterintuitive truth? If this rule passes, a phone with a Huawei-designed chip is illegal, even if the brand is not Huawei. Now let me talk about the challenge. The problem: modern products contain hundreds, if not thousands, of components from dozens of countries. A single smartphone can have parts from multiple continents. The audit challenge: device makers will need to audit their supply chains at the component level, not just the assembly level. Companies that have been quietly sourcing chips from HiSilicon or other blacklisted subsidiaries will need to find alternatives. The timeline: switching suppliers can take months or years of qualification testing, redesign work, and contract renegotiation. Chris McGuire, a former White House National Security Council official, said compromised components, particularly semiconductors or communications devices, can be used to corrupt entire devices. Since the FCC already banned Huawei, it is only logical for it to also ban devices that include Huawei components. The counterintuitive truth? This rule won't just hurt Chinese companies. It will disrupt entire supply chains, including American and allied manufacturers. Now let me talk about winners and losers. Losers. Huawei faces even more US market loss, already zero presence in phones, but now even component-based revenue is cut off. Third-party brands that use HiSilicon chips will face disruption. Affected sectors could include security cameras, IoT devices, networking equipment, and smartphones from smaller OEMs. Device makers that have been quietly sourcing chips from blacklisted firms will need costly redesigns. Potential winners. Apple faces less competition. US consumers looking for premium alternatives will turn to them. Samsung is a direct competitor to Huawei in the Chinese market with indirect benefit. MediaTek and Qualcomm will get more design wins from manufacturers that previously used HiSilicon chips. Non-Chinese component suppliers that can replace blacklisted parts will benefit. The counterintuitive truth? The biggest winners might not be US companies. It could be other Asian chip makers, Taiwan's MediaTek, South Korea's Samsung, Japan's Renesas. Let me leave you with the 3 secrets that connect everything we just discussed. Secret 1. The component level trap. Most people think a ban on Huawei means all Huawei. They don't realize components were a blind spot. The FCC is now closing that gap. If this passes, any device with a blacklisted component is illegal, regardless of brand. Secret 2. The supply chain audit nightmare. Tracing every component in a modern smartphone is nearly impossible. Companies will need months, or years, to redesign products. Expect product shortages. Expect price increases. Secret 3. The competitor advantage play. When Huawei is squeezed, the next wave of demand goes to competitors. Apple and Samsung have the most to gain. But Tier 2 brands that don't use Chinese chips could also benefit. Watch for market share shifts. So what should you actually do with this information? If you are a tech investor, watch the FCC vote in July. If the rule passes, semiconductor supply chains will be disrupted. Look for opportunities in US-based chip companies, non-Chinese component suppliers, and Apple and Samsung with less competition. If you are a consumer, check if your devices use HiSilicon or other blacklisted chips. If you have a device with a Huawei-designed chip, it won't be illegal to own, but sales of new ones could stop. If you are a supply chain manager, start auditing your components now. If you find blacklisted parts, start looking for alternatives. Qualification testing takes time. Don't wait until the vote. Here is my question for you. Do you think the FCC's component-level ban is necessary national security, or is it supply chain chaos waiting to happen? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. Like and subscribe if you want more analysis on US-China tech policy and the companies caught in the middle. I'll see you in the next video.